Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is our privilege to have all of you here at the 27th National Conference of Sahodaya School Complexes. We have had a wonderful first half, and your comments on the event so far and the Nav Kalavitika Art Gallery have been most encouraging. For your presence here today and your appreciation, we are grateful. Until a few years back, we saw games and learning as two diametrically opposite activities. Today, however, that understanding has undergone a paradigm shift. As education has evolved more towards holistic development of the individual, games have entered into the realm of education, and we are today speaking of game based learning. To discuss various aspects of these, we have with us three eminent experts who will share the knowledge and expertise with us today. Before I invite them to address the gathering, let us have a look at the introductory video.
Dr. Kavi Arya is Professor of Computer Science and Engineering at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. He did his BSc Honours in Computing Science from the Imperial College of Science and Technology, UK, and MSc Honours PhD in Computation from the University of Oxford. He worked in various positions in the industry before coming to IIT Bombay in the year 2000. Professor Arya is Principal Investigator of the E-Yantra project, www.e-yantra.org, funded by Ministry of Education, popularizing project-based learning using robotics in engineering colleges since 2012. Dr. Chitra Balakrishna is an educator, researcher, and author with over 20 years of experience spanning across academia and industry in the areas of cybersecurity, data networking, mobile technologies, and applications. A certified ethical hacker, she is currently the program leader for cybersecurity at Open University in the United Kingdom. She is also the cybersecurity lead within the government-funded Institute of Coding, IOC, project which aims to enhance UK's digital skills and address the skills gap. Her work during the recent times focuses on human aspects of cybersecurity and on gamification of cybersecurity education. Dr. Balakrishna is a member of the Board of Trustees in the UK government's Cybersecurity Council, which is set up to build cybersecurity capacity and infrastructure to make UK the safest place to live and work online. Mr. Shrikant Shriralkar is a seasoned management professional having over 35 years of experience in leading and managing business functions as well as technology consulting. He has mentored authors and published best-selling books and white papers on technology. He has patents on technology and service delivery. His book titled IT Through Experiential Learning prescribes application of game-based approach premised on experiential learning. He had designed and delivered courses entirely on his innovative game-based approach, which resulted in significant impact and showcased the application of the approach for teachers and faculty members from academia. He regularly delivers faculty development programs. Currently, he is on the Board of Studies for HSNC University for their undergraduate and postgraduate courses on computer science. He has been on the departmental advisory board of a couple of engineering colleges.
I would like to warmly welcome all our three guests for this session. And to moderate this discussion, I would now like to invite Mrs. Richa Verma, Secretary, Sahodaya Samiti, Gwalior. Ma'am, I will now request you to please take over the session from here.
Thank you, Paridhi, and good afternoon to all of you. It is my pleasure to be moderating a session which is so exciting. The name itself, Our Games, the New Books. It is such an exciting title and such a contemporary topic to be dealing with today. And with such eminent panelists on board with me today, whose vision of a renewed style of teaching learning process is both innovative and futuristic. Dr. Arya, Dr. Balakrishna, and Mr. Shiralkar, I welcome three of you to this session. Our games, the new books, Gamification of Learning. The title itself is so exciting. I think it excites everybody irrespective of the age. Why? Because whenever the word games comes through, we all feel challenged, we all feel excited, irrespective of whatever age we are in. Now, if the title, if the word itself excites us, what would it do for a younger generation? That is something which we need to contemplate upon. To work through this, to move through this, as we begin the session, we would like our session to be more interactive. For this, we have one question and answer box there. We would be doing certain poll questions in between, where we would request the audience to please give their answers in yes and no. And if there are any queries or questions which you would like to ask the experts, you can please key in your questions in the question and answer box. Moving ahead, before in fact I move ahead, the first question which I would like to ask my audience today is, what in your opinion, do you think can games actually be included as a part of academic curriculum? What is your take on this question? Please key in your answers to this. Moving ahead with the session, let me first introduce, though the formal introduction is already done, but let me just give you a word about the first of the panelists, Mr. Shiralkar, Mr. Shrikant Shiralkar. Now, Mr. Shiralkar, we've already read through his or gone through his introduction. But what went missing in that introduction, and what actually inspired me to be a part of this session, was that he's already written 2 books, one with the name of IT Through Experiential Learning. Now, this book was authored somewhere back in 2016. And we've been talking about experiential learning through our sessions throughout for quite some time now. And he is an expert in that. Another book which he authored was Adaptation of IT Through Gamification. Another title which somehow links us or coordinates much more with the title of today's session. So, Mr. Shiralkar, at this point, I would like to know your take on the topic, Our Games, the New Books. Over to you, Mr. Shiralkar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nisha. And once again, my greetings to every participant. And I feel truly privileged to be part of this session and to be part of this whole event and share my thoughts. Now, let me pick up 2 key words from what Richa, you mentioned, new and game. So whether games are new book, I wanted to reflect in the backdrop of whether the technology, the way we are using it today. For instance, WhatsApp is a default means of communication today. Did we have a book for that, or did we have a book for, let's say, using the Facebook? No, we kind of went on. The whole social media is a clear evidence that self-directed learning is extremely powerful and potent. Now, so therefore, and then I want to enlarge the canvas of discussion or thinking to the evolution of humanity. While writing and scriptures have had a history probably connected to pottery as well, where scriptures on the pottery were first identified. But evolution and the pace of evolution could have accelerated due to knowledge being captured in form of books, and therefore books do play extraordinary role in terms of acceleration. But the knowledge gaining or the learning essentially is through experience, and that experience, if we create it joyful and involved with the subject, the whole process becomes much more wholesome and produces high impact. For instance, I'll just take a very two light examples from my own life. There was a classmate of mine somewhere around ninth class. He was fond of movies. And Sholay was launched at that point of time. He could recite those dialogues with precision and accuracy that was, very amazing. And the same classmate, couldn't even recall the title of the poetry of Hindi, which is surprising. And not when I, again draw parallel to when I took my kid, 8 years of age, to the movie Transformers. He was so excitedly educating me on each characters and their technical attributes, which amazed me again, that why he's so on both the cases. I noticed that if the learner is passionately involved with the subject, the whole process of knowledge acquisition and cognitive development is extraordinarily accelerated, and the retention.
By the time Mr. Shiralkar joins us and he continues with his talk, we are all talking about technology, and technology definitely has its own glitches at times. So not a problem. We are humans. We know how to move ahead. So the next panelist with us is Dr. Chitra Balakrishnan. Again, her introduction has been played through, but Dr. Balakrishnan's core area of expertise is cybersecurity, a branch of technology which needs to be ahead of the rest to be relevant. Now, and specifically, Madam, your association in academia definitely makes you an apt expert for this discussion. I would, I along with my audience, would like to know your view on the topic, please.
Thank you, Richa. I'd like to present my view on the topic by a very brief presentation I've put together. Thank you all for joining in this session. Good afternoon from the UK. Are games the new books? Well, I don't have a direct answer to it right now, but I'm going to speak about the power of game-based learning and the need why we should harness this power within our current education system. There is a need to change the way we teach. Let's look at why. This is a picture of this is a photo from a classroom in the 1960s, where you can see the teacher delivering a lesson. The knowledge is shared through lessons and teaching lectures in a classroom, and the students imbibe that knowledge by listening to the teachers or sometimes interacting with the teachers. And how is this knowledge assessed? Through an exam or a test where your performance of the student, where the performance of the learners are assessed, right? So let's look at a classroom in 2020. The teaching still is done in the same way, where the teacher delivers new information and knowledge to the students through lessons and lectures, and students listen to the lecturers or teachers to imbibe that knowledge. And how are they assessed? Or their performance is assessed in an exam. So this system doesn't take into account why some learners learn better than the others and why some learners perform better than the others. It's a one-size-fits-all education system. Either the student adapts to this system or fails. While the education system itself hasn't changed for over centuries now, our learners have certainly changed. In fact, more drastically so in the last 10 years. So how do our current generation of learners, the 8 to 18-year-olds, actually learn? Research informs us that 51% of them learn by doing, and 38% of those learners learn by seeing, and only a mere 12% of the learners learn by listening. So which indicates nearly 85% of our students are within an average classroom are learning not very effectively by listening, by merely listening to the lectures or teachers in the classroom. The new learners love learning through videos. The popularity of YouTube and Unacademy sort of applications just proves that. These new generation of learners are constantly seeking to learn, through experiences, experiential learning, learn through collaborative engagements and social interactions, which our current education system don't offer. Famous poet Diane Ackerman says, play is our brain's favorite way to learn. So why not use playful, joyful learning methods to meet the needs of our new generation of learners? This doesn't mean that we sort of translate or transform our existing classrooms into playrooms or games rooms, right? Playful or joyful learning techniques can be implemented in a variety of ways. Game-based learning is one such terminology that you may have heard within the context of learning and beyond. It simply means you transform your existing learning content by including or sprinkling some features from a game, mechanic, gameplay, such as, let's say, leaderboards or reward points or badges or recognitions to sort of bring in that fun and engagement element into an existing content. You're not doing anything to your teaching content. You're just sprinkling it with some rewards and badges to bring in that fun element. The other extreme form of implementation of a joyful learning is what we term as the game-based learning. And the term and the game-based learning as a methodology is gaining more and more attention across the globe within academia. So game-based learning is where the playing or the game itself is the learning. So these games doesn't have to be your PUBG or your Pokemon Go, or they don't even have to be those digital games that has to be played in a PC or a PlayStation or a mobile phone. Game-based learning can be any game that's fun to play primarily. Secondly, it has certain set of rules and interaction. Most importantly, they're designed to achieve a set of learning goals. So teachers can actually build and design their own games for the topics they teach. So that can be a game-based learning method. I did pose a question right at the beginning as to, from the educators, from all the principals who are attending this session, which out of these reasons would you quote as the top 3 reasons for students not learning or performing to their potential? I did receive a response to that poll, and the response to the poll says that most of you think it's the lack of interest in learning that students have, simply because they find classroom learning or teaching methods quite boring. That's the top. And the second, of course, lack of engagement in the class. And then there are, of course, lack of motivation from the students' side as well. So let's see which of these challenges can be addressed by the the game-based learning methods. One of the power of game-based learning methods or gameplay is the fact that games are normally fun to play, and anything that's fun results in passionate involvement. And once you're passionately involved, you can learn anything. That's crucial for any learning, passionate involvement, and that acts as a natural motivator. So you tick off the motivation element straight away by including some game-based methods in your classroom. And all games normally have a set of rules, have a goal, often have a lot of interaction in them. And games also enable what we call as the learn by doing, which is probably the most basic way we learn some of our basic life skills, such as walking, talking, cooking, swimming, cycling, any of that. And it's an effective form of learning, learn by doing, and brings in that engagement that the typical classroom-based learning doesn't often provide. Last but not the least, the game-based learning permits what we call as for the learners to learn by trial and error. They can commit mistakes with no negative consequences. They can learn without the fear of failure, which I believe is the crucial part of any learning environment, and can create optimum learning amongst the learners. Learning without the fear of failure, having able to try different approaches and learn through different means and methods. So these are, in my view, are the power of game-based learning, and they can certainly be used in a variety of ways within a typical classroom setting. I have done my own experiments with game-based learning, as my introduction said, within the area of cybersecurity. I'm not going to show the video that I have right now. Time permitting, during the question answer session, perhaps I will. But to my answer, to this question, are games the new books? I would say games definitely meet the needs of our new generation of learners. They do address some of the challenges of our current education system, and some of the challenges that you educators have answered in that poll question yourself. Lack of motivation and engagement and focus in classroom can be brought about by games. So I certainly believe games can be a channel to encourage our learners to engage in deeper learning, advanced learning, which are enabled by books and other resources, educational resources. So games are here to stay, with or without books. That's my take. And if there is one last thing I'd really like to take away from this session is please erase the thought that if someone's having fun, they're not learning. That is, if you're having fun, you're not learning, is definitely a myth. And the truth, in fact, is the opposite. Play is brain's favorite way to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Balakrishnan. With this, your take definitely has a lot of insight into it. With this, we have again Mr. Shrikant Shiralkar has joined us back again after a small technical issue at some end. So, Mr. Shiralkar, would you like to continue from where you left off?
Sure. Thanks. I think I had left off that overall, if the engagement is enhanced through game, the concepts, very complex concepts are also easy for the learner to grasp and comprehend. And more so, I have academicians, let's say research on the subject on the slide, if you notice, where this academician had clearly identified in a cone of learning that if the learner is practicing what the concept or experimenting with the concept, the ability to retain and ability to analyze and actually ability to create is extraordinarily improved versus a mere reading and listening. And therefore, the games actually bring in the active mode rather than a passive mode. A student becomes more involved than a apathetic watcher. And therefore, games continue to be, my prescription for adaptation into any and every process wherever learning is required. And with that, I think I would hand it over back to you. I know there has been a little disruption in the flow. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much, Mr. Shiralkar. With two people talking in terms of gamification and talking in terms of including games as a part of curriculum, the third person on our panel is Dr. Kavi Arya. Now, again, another person who definitely doesn't need any introduction, and but one person who has already walked the talk of what all we talk about. He's already walked the talk. He has already done a lot towards learning through gamification, and he's primarily on the other end of the spectrum where they do talk about how to include. He's already done that, been there. So Dr. Arya, over to you for giving us a better understanding.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope everybody can see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I will remove the controls from the screen. I think the screen should look better now. So what I want to share with you is 20 years of experience in 5 minutes. where 20 years ago, roughly, I came to IIT Bombay, and Professor Deepak Phatak, a very charismatic, a passionate believer in distance education. He wanted IIT education to be available to more people. And the only scalable way he thought was through technology and through VSAT bandwidth and stuff like that. So my first job at IIT in 2000 was to set up the distance education program. But when we set up the distance education program, we found that it was easy to teach theory through this distance mode. But when it came to practicals, building engineering artifacts, I used to teach a subject called embedded systems, which is how to build intelligent machines like your mobile phones, flight avionics, robotics, those kind of things. Trying to teach it through the distance education program was a real challenge. And that's when we tried to teach it. It was an utter failure. From that failure came a realization, and we came up with a wonderful method where we used to give robotic kits to the students and give them assignments on the kits. And once they began doing that, the whole education process became like a game. So I would differ from what Chitra has just said, that it's only Gen Z which needs to be doing and seeing more than listening, right, in order to learn. She said 50% doing, 38% seeing, 12% listening. I think the same thing applies to adults. That's where our story begins. And what we have been trying to fix is the real deeper need. So technology is a vahan. What we need in this country, because it's a growing economy, it needs lots and lots of innovators. And for this innovation mindset, we need people who can subject everything to the scrutiny of reason, who are very curious, they can question status quo, and they are armed with the skill set which will for the future, right? And for doing this, we need to have competency or concept-based learning, which you all know about. So the important thing is, how do we cultivate these skills? So we've been doing it to great success in the engineering domain, right? Where eYantra, the project which is funded by Ministry of Education, hosted at IIT Bombay, right, trains engineering students in hard skills through a competition which runs over 6 months, right? And in that 6 months, we train them in STEM, in programming, technology, problem-solving mindset, and even soft skills like persistence, a can-do attitude, learning to deal with failure, which is a very, very important skill, teamwork, empathy, time management, you name it. And all this is done and delivered online using open source tools, which means free software, using open source simulators and also real hardware. To give you an idea, these are the kind of skills, hardcore skills. So we train them in simulators first, like this is building a robotic snake. And then we train them on real hardware where they have to use 3D printers and electronics and so on. Here's a fish in simulator and fish in real hardware. Okay, drone in simulator first, and then drone using real hardware in this thing, right? So these are nano drones which they've had to program. So what do the students feel about this experience that they've had? I have a video for that. I'm going to flash a lot of videos here. So what do the students say?
I personally like Yantra a lot because in this you can actually practically implement things. It's very different from the theoretical knowledge that we learn. For example, we have studied control system in our course, but when we actually tune our drone using ROS, it was entirely different. How the KP, KD, KI are actually affecting the drone, what is its transfer function. I personally like.
So these kids who've been trained by these methods, right, have been going on to higher degrees abroad. This is Hitesh Vavle, who talks a lot about how eYantra was responsible for getting him excited about robotics. He went to Carnegie Mellon and is a roboticist now. Shruti Joshi, who's got a job first in Amazon India, now she's with Google India. So we've trained many, many such students, and they've taken the same skills which we taught them online through a competition and done startups like Suraj Vodiyar has done a sewer cleaning robot. Muthu has done a security robot. Abhishek has done a mines surveying robot, and so on. The story continues. So we asked ourselves a year ago that we've been doing this with older kids. Can the same principles of online distance learning be used with school children, 8th standard to 11th standard, right? Can this principle be used in schools? So we piloted an international robotics competition for schools, and we got entries from Bhutan and Namibia and India and stuff like that. And we took the entire college process and digested it for use in schools, where we taught over 3 months. We taught the kids all the skills from software installation, training in Python, using the virtual robot and stuff like that, using a virtual arena. So they had to navigate a robot. This is an intrepid explorer theme, right? Very COVID friendly, online, using open source resources, where they had to take this little robot, which is at the bottom here, navigate it through this maze, and then take it through a white black line following path, right? Fairly complex and a challenging thing, which we wondered how the students would master. And this is what the theme actually looked like. Okay, it had to navigate this maze. It had to use sensors, virtual ones inside a simulator, to sense the distance from the wall in order to progress, and so on, right? We go on. So this is the experience that the students had. They had to program this all by themselves. So what do the students say, and what do the teachers say about this experience that they had?
Earlier, I used to like to learn stuff, and I used to definitely be in a pursuit for knowledge. But the way I used to read my school textbook was as a textbook. Now I have started to read the textbook like a manual, like something that is directly pertaining to our life. Because when we read our empty book, it is never like we're just reading the empty book. We are reading the empty book, and we have to apply our own logic, and we have to apply our own brain. It's not spoon feeding.
Before this, I was not really interested in maths and physics. However, this made me realize that this is a bit more interesting than what I had originally thought of it as, and thus that is how it has helped me.
This whole system of giving a problem and solving it. That's what I really liked. It's unlike schools. In schools, we teach them an equation and give them sums to solve. Here, they are just given, the problem is thrown and they have to solve it. They are learning life skills which they cannot express today. Each one is helping the other, and the teamwork. They fight, they argue, but they are learning. The learning is immense. I can see it. This is how teaching learning should be in schools.
So what are the learnings from this experience? We spoke to lots of teachers and students and parents, and the feedback that we've got is that this kind of project-based learning online complements the existing education. We specifically asked them if it distracted your kids from the studies. They said no, it didn't conflict. And more importantly, it was very scalable. It was democratic in the sense that it uses free online resources, internet, and gives everybody a level playing field, regardless of whether they come from a resource-rich environment, a rich school, or a poor school, right? That's very important. And the skills they've learned are all these things that we mentioned before: hard skills like technology, soft skills like teamwork, collaboration, time management, and stuff like that. And above all, kids told us that it was a stress buster in COVID times. So our experience has been a lot. Almost 160,000 engineering college students have been trained, but in schools, our experience has been for the last about a year and a half. And we've realized that through this competition, more important than technology skills is the scientific temper that we develop, right? The curiosity, the problem-solving mindset, the life skills like persistence, can-do, learning to deal with failure, which is an underestimated important skill, and soft skills, as I said. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that, look, India is a growing economy, unusually with a very young population. Half of us are below the age of 25. We need innovators to do import substitution, create all the innovation that we need in a growing economy. This needs a mindset change. And students have to be charged with these contemporary skills and this knowledge. So we have a way of training them online, scalably, using games. So eYantra is what does that. It's an IIT Bombay based project. You can go to this website if you want, or you can write to us at school@e-yantra.org. And I believe that there's a poll that we'd like you to take, which I'd like Subhayu here to deploy. And we are happy to entertain questions. We'd like you to fill that form, which is there if you go to that website, and we'll be happy to deal with you more on this. So games are here to stay. Games are the way ahead. And I hope this message comes out at the end of the panel discussion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So at this stage, Dr. Arya, I've gone through your presentation right now, what you talked about, and because you've actually put it to practice. So I have one question, which I've been going through all the questions from the audience polls also, audiences also, the questions which are coming through from them. So this sort of groups set of questions here, like in your opinion, what we've been seeing is the technical gamification, right? But how can we use this technical gamification actually to enhance or to complement our more basic subject-based entire teaching learning process?
See, I would like to say here that there's a sort of kind of fear of technology, which is expressed subliminally, whether you like it or not, and technical being things that these technologists do. But I would like to share with you that the first technology that humans invented was speech, with which they could communicate, right, over and above grunts and touching and feeling and stuff like that. After that came a remarkable technology after the Industrial Revolution called the books printing process, with which they could share an idea amongst lots of people. So I feel computers and computerization and technology is just a continuum, in the sense that it gives us much more power than we used to have. And I think it's equally important for humanities students, economists, technologists to learn these kind of skills, because these are the new tools that you have in your bag of tricks, if you like, right? I feel that even an English literature student would gain a lot from being able to find out all the kind of relevant information which is available on the web and dealing with it. So technology is just an enabler. It's not an end in itself. And it's just a madhyam through which our human powers become more formidable. Absolutely. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, it does, that it is just a tool. I would extend this, the same thing to, as a question to Mr. Shiralkar also, because again, you've also talked in these terms only. Also, so what do you think? Can you actually give an example how we can use a complex concept to be explained to students through games?
Sure. I think, there was a period about more than a decade back. I had a startup in education sector in India, and more so focused around technical education, particularly a software called SAP. And when I was introducing to various colleges, I realized that they do not know they haven't had even the ERP as a subject in their curriculum, and therefore the ERP. So when ERP was initially, I took a poll and I realized that they were missing the whole concept. So I had designed a full course and delivered it all through the game. And probably a video of that, will help you realize that how a complex subject like ERP to a student who hasn't been exposed to the industry and therefore doesn't understand the nuances, when he or she engages and plays that game, in just one classroom session, they had absorbed and they learned so much that when they were exposed to an external panel from industry and academia, the responses that they gave, baffled the industry members, that they spend a huge money and time on their, when such transformations have taken place, and they couldn't let's say, help their colleagues to grasp that subject. And the students reflected complete deeper comprehension of that subject. Can we have that video, please? Just for just a show, so that you will feel the energy in learning in the classroom.
Just give us a second to cue the video.
Sure, thank you. So you will notice that as the video plays, the students in their teams, as they were participating in this game, they were a set of people who were, or students who were observing them, but there were also students who were playing, and they were just enjoying the whole phenomenon of, what I had done is to give them a concept of all the industry aspects. I had given them simple, if you notice, the boy was manufacturing an aircraft. An aircraft, as you know, just those paper-based airplanes. So they were having this game of manufacturing an airplane and selling it. And thereby, they had to create a balance sheet. One was given certain tools like in a metaphorically an ERP system, and other team wasn't. And the results phenomenally helped me implant that concept of what ERP can do to a business. And thereby, as I was mentioning about, the external panel was baffled with the depth of understanding on the concept. Back to you. Hopefully, I answered your question, Richa.
Absolutely, Mr. Shrikant. That really gives a good insight into this. Now, my next question comes to you, Dr. Balakrishna. You talked about leaderboard sort of games and other games you talked of. Now, what I would want to know, doesn't basically when we talk in terms of games, we talk in terms of winning also. So doesn't this automatically mean that those who do not win will feel demotivated?
Thank you, Richa. Yeah, there's some element of truth in what you said, but there is other side to the story as well. The beauty of play, beauty of game is that everyone experiences the joy of playing. Even if one doesn't win, that's evident in all the games that we play, the right from the snake and ladders to, it doesn't mean that we once lose the snake and ladder, we never play it again. The joy can never be taken away from playing. So the learners who don't necessarily win will still engage with the game and derive the learning that is intended out of the game, if, based on the kind of game design that's been implemented. In fact, the best game-based learning happens when learners don't win easily or lose all the time. Learning happens best when there is right amount of challenge for each learner. And furthermore, not all games need to have a competitive element. There are games just to trigger curiosity of learners. For instance, in my experimentation with the game-based learning, I've used story and narrative and simulation of real-world scenarios, reactions and actions and reactions to introduce a very complex topic area within cybersecurity to my students. Games are a great way to demystify complex topics. If the time permits, there's a 30-second video that could be played to show.
Not really, Dr. Chitra, not really.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, but yeah, while you say competitive element could be demotivating, but the joy of play and play itself cannot be taken out, and there's learning in it. Anyway. And not all game-based learning has to have a competitive element. That's my answer. I don't know if it does answer the question.
No, it does. It definitely does. And now that we are nearly towards the close of the session, as we go towards the close of the session, there are hundreds of questions which people have put in, the audience have put in, different principals have put in, and which are very relevant to be answered. But dear audience, please understand we are pressed with time right now, but we will be taking up these questions and I will be asking our expert panel, because they have already showed their interest in this part, that if they can answer some of your questions or at least solve some of the queries which you people have, we will be doing that part after this session. So Shubhayu, I hope you are able to curate and put down the questions for us to look into it later into the day. Now, as we move ahead, we're towards the last end of our session now, and I would just give you maybe 30 seconds each to please sum up your take on this part, that how would you want to leave your audience, with what thought would you want to leave your audience today? We start with you, Mr. Shiralkar.
I have actually a slide which is created more as a recommendation of 3I process, is identify, ideate, and then implement. So what I meant is, because of your years of teaching, you would know within a subject a concept that most of the time an average student stumbles upon. So you identify that situation or that concept, then put it to ideation, be it other teachers or be it as a sample test in any form of, as Dr. Chitra was also alluded to, that games need not to be a plaything. It could be a quiz, it could be a treasure hunt, or anything that raises the level of interest and engagement. So identify that, implement it. Then observe the result. If it works, if it is improving, you can once you start, believe me, you would be on a roll of creating using this game for improved results. And I would be very happy to stay engaged with anyone who reaches out, and I will extend my all the help.
Thank you, Mr. Shiralkar. I move to you, Dr. Chitra, to give your closing.
Yeah, thank you, Richa. I would say, remember, play is our brain's favorite way to learn. I would request the principals here to incentivize, encourage teachers to use game-based learning methods in their teaching, make learning more inclusive, use these game-based learning resources as an alternative to students who are struggling to cope with the traditional teaching methods. What we've tried in the UK is what we call as the game jam, where teachers build a game to demonstrate to teach a difficult topic within their own subjects. And demonstrate the results and impact of that game within their own classrooms. And each year, the repository of these game-based resources is built in the school, which could be reused year on year. And I feel game-based learning techniques is just not for the students, it's also for the teachers to gain more enthusiasm in what they're teaching, especially those teachers who may get bored teaching the same topic over and over year on year. It brings in both enthusiasm and happiness amongst the teachers, and happy and enthusiastic teachers, result in happy and inspired students. So that's my final take on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitra. And Dr. Arya, finally, your last words onto this.
I'd like to just share an experience with you. 15 years ago, we did a survey with Copenhagen Business School to find out the innovation level of the Indian software industry. And what are the things that make a software company more innovative? And I think this can be a lesson for schools also, because I do believe that principals cast a vast shadow across the entire working of the school. So the role model that they set is very important. We came up with a startling finding that companies which have a lot of hierarchy are not innovative. Companies which have little hierarchy are much more innovative. Companies which don't mind failure, right, amongst their staff, because staff, obviously, if you try new things, will fail, right? They are receptive and they cope with that. I mean, they are far more successful. So that's the thought that I'd like to leave with you. And there are ways to incorporate this into whatever curriculum that you live with at the moment, however static or active it is, and very complex skills can be taught. And I feel that we are only limited by our imagination as to what we can achieve in life. Right? That's the last word. We are only limited by your imagination.
Absolutely, Dr. Arya. Absolutely, so correctly put and so articulately put. That's right. At this point, let me first get back to you that 100% of the people of the audience who are with us have actually agreed to my first question, that can actually games be used as a part of curriculum? So that first struggle which we have, that are you actually convinced of the idea, that seems already to be crossed. We've already crossed that even at the beginning of the session. So that means we have a very open-minded audience with us today. So, and the best take I could summarize taking from all the three panelists is that as principals, as educators, as leaders, because we have certain amount of years of experience already of the classroom with us when we come to this place. So let us try it out with our own subject. Let us do what Mr. Shiralka said, that ideate and then implement, create and then implement, try and implement that. Let us do something like a game jam, as Dr. Balakrishnan said, and innovate, as Dr. Arya is constantly talking of. Let us do it with ourselves first, and then put it across to our educators, and then finally to our beneficiaries as students. I thank you all for this, for being a part of this session, for being so actively involved. Your questions will be answered. We've got a lot of questions to answer here, and I thank from the bottom of my heart the panelists who've been so forthcoming and so welcoming to this entire session. Thank you all for being a part of this.
Thank you very much.
Namaskar.
Good afternoon and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.